Simon Jordan is living in the real world.
Yeah.
Do me a favour. Do you know what I mean? This is a guy that hasn't lived in the real world for decades, and even now doesn't. Do you know what I mean? He's just a part of the pampered elite, and he's going on like he's some sort of, left-wing people's champion. It's just nonsense. The whole argument and diatribe is nonsensical.
Welcome to Stretford, Paddock. This is Off the Bar, brought to you by Green King Sport, and I'm joined, what can I say? Joe McGrath here.
Hello, great to see you.
Joe McGrath here.
I'm very excited to be off the bar.
Fresh off the radio.
Ready to talk Man United.
Yes.
How are we?
Yeah, I'm good, man.
Jay
It feels
Motty
like
as well,
ages
of
since
course.
me and you did a podcast together. It's
been a while.
It has been a while since us three.
No, I don't think it has. I just think you do so many. I literally was in 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, but
Was ya?
in YouTube world, that's a year ago.
That is so
Yeah.
long.
Right, come on.
Considering you just bashing it out, mate.
Well, in terms of Man United, it might as well be a year
And then
ago.
doing a podcast. Hey.
Because 2 weeks ago, Man United were the worst team in the Premier League. You have
Yeah.
to remember that.
Yeah.
We'd played three, lost two.
Terrible.
We were a
Shocking.
disgrace. Ten Hag was sacked. All of our players had been sold. And now, just a couple of weeks later, we've beat Southampton, we beat Barnsley, and things seem like they could be on the up. But there's been a lot of pundits that we've had to sort of overcome along the way. And even now, there's people who are still hating. There's still haters, Jay. Can you
Yeah.
believe this?
Yeah, I can
so
believe
we're going
it.
to get into some of that, but we're going to get into a little bit of positivity around Man United as well, and a few reasons why we can actually maybe take that little sigh of relief of actually we might be all right this season. Obviously, a long way to go. We might need 2 or 3 more wins before we can truly say that. But it does feel as though maybe United have turned a little bit of a corner on last season's form in particular. Let's start with a bit of naysaying first, shall we? Let's start with Simon Jordan, your friend of
Here we
mine.
go.
You actually like Simon Jordan a little bit, don't you?
I don't mind him as much in certain respects, but I did have a bit of a dig at him during my news earlier today, because I know he's been very negative about United even after that 7-0 win. Yes, it's against Barnsley, but it just seems a bit silly to have a dig at the team when they've won 7-0. So certain respects what he says like about United being a big club and things like that, I like that, but he does talk a lot of nonsense sometimes, and also he's just trying to get a rise out of people like me.
Yeah, and here we go. So let's get into some of his quotes after the game, after the Barnsley game.
Yeah.
He refuses to praise United for that game, by the way. He just says, well, I'll get into it. He said if that's the blueprint, talking about Ten Hag winning the trophy, if that's the blueprint, winning 1 trophy a season for Man United, then they can go back to the 70s and see how successful that was for them.
Right, okay.
Interesting.
Proper dig.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bit of a dig there. It, not only now is he downplaying beating Barnsley, he's downplaying winning the FA Cup.
Exactly,
which is
well
mad. 300 million of talent on the pitch against a team worth a packet of gobstoppers. Very 80s.
Tight on Barnsley as well.
Tie on gobstoppers.
I'm there, I'm a Barnsley player going, look, I'm not a gobstopper.
Yeah.
I'm at least a fruit pastel.
Yeah, exactly. Well,
Do they still do gobstoppers?
Yeah, it's a very 70s and 80s reference.
It is, isn't it?
How big could you have got it?
What?
The gobstopper.
Oh, right.
I can get a full one in my mouth.
Could you? One of those big ones?
Yeah.
Really?
Easy. What about you, Jay?
I can't remember. It was that long ago.
They didn't have gobstoppers when Joe was a kid.
No, what colour did it make your tongue?
Well, it depends which layer you were on. They would go all different colours, different layers, wouldn't they, as you go through them?
Honestly, I remember having them, and they were like it was a task, wasn't it?
Yeah, they're the shittest sweet ever.
Yeah.
Because it's literally just sugar for sugar's sake.
Yeah.
The only thing they're really good at, and this is bad,
Yeah.
throwing at birds. Do you know what I mean? If you've got like a row of...
Hold on.
Hey, what you're talking about 97, throwing at birds. That's the way I used to get them. Throw gobstoppers
Throw
at
them
them.
at
And the thing is,
What do you think this is?
What's up with you?
I don't condone animal cruelty, obviously.
Right.
But people used to... Do you know the little mini gobstoppers that you get in the sort of square cardboard box?
Yeah.
You get the mini ones. People
Yeah.
used to ping them at pigeons. When I was
Ping
at
him
school.
at pigeons.
right.
Crikey.
Yeah, I know, it's rough stuff.
pigeons.
Yeah.
Well, I
but,
thought he
but
was
what I mean is they're a
being
good
sexist.
throw-in shape and size.
Right.
Much like a pickled onion.
Hey. The
other
must
than
have just
that-
flown by in workshop.
Other than
Is that
that...
what you used to do?
But what did you used to do? Make feature films with your mates? No, we were throwing
Let's get a
stuff at
pack of
birds.
gobstoppers and go throw them at pigeons.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's the life. We used to throw stones at the college behind my house.
At the moon.
No, honestly, Callum Burton hit it once because it came back faster than he'd thrown it, so it must have done. So you're laughing, but that's genuinely true. And do you know,
class.
yeah, that's the thing.
I threw Milky Ways at the moon.
Oh, very nice.
That's that space joke that for you, Jay.
Right, okay.
That's good, that.
Yeah.
Mars?
Could have gone Mars.
So,
Twix?
no. Right, he also said Simon Jordan. We've already been derailed. We're only 4 minutes in. Simon Jordan also went on to say Rashford has regained his confidence. Are you so mentally weak when it comes to top none? When it comes on top, none of them can cope with it. If you can't cope with a bit of criticism, what are you going to do in the real world when no one cares that you kicked a bag of wind around? They only care about what you represent in society.
Right.
But let's get to that bit last.
That bit's awful.
Let's save the response to that bit for now, because that's its whole own thing. Let's stick to these top ones. Firstly, talking about if that's the blueprint, winning one trophy a season, and then they go back to the 70s and see how successful that was for them. Jay, what do you make of that?
It's just the timing of this is bizarre. Like, we've just won 7-0 and you're having a dig. Yes, Barnsley are a League One side, but you can't do much better than absolutely batter them from start to finish, which is what United did, with a bit of a makeshift team as well. It's not like he played his strongest team. There's a lot of players that sat that game out who will be playing against Crystal Palace. So it just seems the timing of it's weird. And also, a lot of what he's saying here doesn't make sense. Simon Jordan does that classical thing, because he's got quite a large vocabulary and he sounds a bit posh, that when he speaks, he's got like an air of intelligence to him, even when he's talking utter dribble, which is what he's doing now. Like, if that's the blueprint for Man United, then they can go back to the 70s and see how successful that was for them. That entire sentence is meaningless.
Yeah.
Everything about that is meaningless. Like, if that's the blueprint for them, what's the blueprint? Beating football teams. If that's your blueprint, see how far you got in the 70s with that. What do you mean? What are you saying we should do then? Stop winning?
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. It's just a silly sort of remark aimed at showing off that you remember that United used to be a bit poor in the 70s. Yeah. And also, what relevance has that got to do with anything now? We've won 2 trophies in 2 seasons, which is actually decent. I know that the league form hasn't been good enough, so that makes no sense whatsoever to me. It's just, it's it's a man shouting at a cloud.
What do you make of that, Joe?
Yeah, I think Jay's right there. The kind of like, the thing with Simon Jordan is he does like to sort of go at these arguments quite aggressively, and he sort of manipulates you into thinking he's right because of the way he speaks and because of the way he draws you in with these sort of lucrative words about, and you think to yourself, he must be right because look at him.
Yeah.
I don't
got
know
a phrase and a turn of and a this and a that, and all of a sudden he's said something. You go, that probably made sense.
And his demeanour is that, and you got to remember, Simon Jordan is very successful at what he does. That's why he's doing it for a living, and he's got people riled up from it. But again, I mean, we'll get on to the final comments, but I really just think his main aim of the show he was on saying these words were to rattle Man United fans, and what he's done then as his job is go in and pick apart a very good win for United on the week, and sort of try and goad us a little bit, and successfully so. He's quite intelligent. He is for me just sometimes just not a very nice guy to listen to, because it's like
provocateur.
He doesn't really change his opinion, even if you can convince him that he's wrong. He's quite stubborn in his manner.
Yeah. He then obviously says 300 million talent on the pitch against a team worth a packet of gobstoppers, which, what do you want us to do?
That's the good point.
30-0.
Well, the point of that is, right, 300 million quid worth of talent on the pitch against a team worth a packet of gobstoppers, right? You tell me, right, you pick an 11 that Erik Ten Hag could have picked that didn't cost around 300 mil. Like, most of our players now cost a lot of money.
Even if it's just 15 million there, 10 million there.
So unless he played an entire team of children from the under 19 or the under 21s, then you're gonna have you play Maguire, he cost 80 million. You play someone like Anthony, he cost 80 million. I know we overpaid for him, but they cost. Casemiro cost 70 million. So, and these aren't players. These players, Maguire, Anthony, and Casemiro, they don't even start when everyone's fit. So he's played his reserve team, or partly his reserve team. It just so happens that part of that reserve team costs a lot of money. So I don't understand what the argument is there. What, we shouldn't have played those players. We should have just played all the kids, in which case you could have come unstuck, and then you would have been going, why did you play a load of players who've never played for Manchester United before? That was a silly move.
None of it just doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't.
Also, in the past, we've been stung a little bit by these teams that are lower than us in the league, and they've come for a good game of football, and they've beaten us. I remember NK Dons. Remember that? 4-0. You know, we've been bitten on the arse before by not just putting a pretty okay side out to go and demolish a team full of gobstoppers, and we put a team out, And they beat the Gobstoppers. And that gets us to the next round of the cup.
What do you want us to do? Like, do you want to, like you said, pick a team full of 16-year-olds that lowers the experience and the quality by so much that it's an even close-fought game?
And then we get knocked out. And then what? And then what? We're out.
What is the aim here? You should only be able to win on a level playing field, or that you don't get any praise for winning just because your team costs more than theirs. Like, if you compare, like, even teams in the bottom third of the Premier League, some of their teams cost 100 million. And sometimes United or City or whoever can field a team closer to 500 million. But, you know, what's the aim here? Yeah, the bigger teams have more money and we spend it and then we do better and we win trophies and we finish higher up. Like, what do you want us to do? Purposefully put out worse players so that it's a close game, or win 40-0? Like, what's the aim? I don't get it. And then the last thing, Rashford's regained his confidence. Are you so mentally weak when it comes on top, none of them can cope with it? If you can't cope with a bit of criticism, what are you going to do in the real world when no one cares that you kicked a bag of wind around? They only care what you represent in society.
No. This is the worst statement ever.
And also, the way he's gone after Marcus, right? For starters, what are you going to do in the real world? I'm pretty sure Marcus has been in the real world, because he wasn't born and then on the same day he was born he started playing for Manchester United's first team. He was brought up in Wivenshaw. He went through sort of, you know, close to poverty, where he was struggling a little bit, and I think he was on free school meals and stuff like that. Hence the reason he tried to do something about it and make sure everyone else got free school meals that were entitled to them in the real world. You may have noticed it because it was on every major news outlet for about a year. So I don't believe for 1 second Simon Jordan doesn't know that. And also, what does that mean? What are you going to do in the real world when no one cares that you kicked a bag of wind around? Well, what? So he should stop playing now?
No, but here's the thing about that.
Because now, when I'm 27, but when I'm 37, I stop playing football. What am I going to do in the real world? Oh, I don't know. Well, I'll just stop playing now then.
Yeah, but here's the thing with the real world.
No sense again.
Football is the real world. Yeah, Simon Jordan's on a station that talks about football. Rashford will be known as one of the Man United stars for the rest of his life. Football is the real world. Yeah. We're here now talking about football in the real world. Also, it's the real world.
If to him that isn't the real world, Rashford's never going to be in the real world anyway. He's a multi-millionaire who isn't required to get a job at Tesco or work in bars or whatever the sort of jobs that we've had and we've done and that real people do. He's never going to be in the. He's a multi-millionaire who's going to be a United legend to one degree or another when he retires. Like, what do you mean? Well, no one cares that you kicked a bag of wind around.
Yes, they do.
No one will ever stop caring that Rashford played for Man United.
Marcus Rashford, right, when he retires, could walk into TalkSport Towers and go, "Give me Simon Jordan's job," and they go, "Yeah, no worries."
Yeah.
Like, he wouldn't, but he could do. He could walk in at loads of jobs. And also, let's have it right. Simon Jordan is living in the real world. Yeah. Do me a favour. Do you know what I mean? This is a guy that hasn't lived in the real world for decades, and even now doesn't. Do you know what I mean? He's just a part of the pampered elite, and he's going on like he's some sort of, you know, left-wing people's champion. It's just nonsense. The whole argument and diatribe is nonsensical. None of it makes any sense at all, and it just feels like you were saying, Joe. It's just, let's poke United fans with a stick, because if I come on the airwaves and say, "Oh, United did really well, they beat Barnsley 7-0," people are going to know it's only Barnsley, and I need to pander to the non-United fans rather than sort of praising.
Well, I think this video is important, because what they want is just interaction on their pages, and what they want is for United fans to call up and then they just to shoot them down or whatever, and that's good for them, isn't it? Whereas this right now is us basically telling Simon Jordan he's a bit of a knobhead, and that he's facts and all that, and what he says as real world kind of quotes. We're not having it, because you're just being daft.
It's just being daft, and it is just daft for the sake of daft, innit? It's like, I'm not going to give him praise for winning this game, so all of a sudden I'm going to call Marcus Rashford. Like, weird, like, questioning his character as well, like you said, Jay, when of all the players you could pick, he's one who's most publicly made a contribution to society and to the sort of parts of society that most need it.
Yeah.
Kids who don't have enough food, he's literally helped those people out. What more real world sort of contribution do you need, what you bring to the real world, than that? Like, you could have named many United players who, I'm sure almost all of them give to charity in some respect, but very, very few of them have had such a public sort of real world battle to do that.
None of them have. I don't think there's a footballer in modern history who's done what Marcus Rashford has done in terms of making the government do 2 U-turns and feeding millions of starving kids. That's never happened before, and I doubt it ever will since. Now, if you want to question his footballing ability, his consistency, whatever, fair enough, we've all done that on this channel. But if you're saying he's got no real-world experience or whatever, or what's he going to do in the real world after what he's actually done to affect the real world, then you just make yourself look like a dickhead.
Yeah, you do. We're pleased to announce that once again Off the Bar is brought to you by Green King Sport, where football is more than a game.
United play Crystal Palace this Saturday at 5:30 p.m. And if you've not got tickets, then do the next best thing. Get your mates together and get down to a Green King Sport pub to catch all the action. If you use the Green King Sport app, you'll be able to find your nearest Green King Sport pub. And there's a special offer this weekend. Whilst the game is on, you can have 20% off all drinks.
Only thing better than a Man United win on a Saturday evening is 20% off your drinks. And if you've not signed up before, you'll even get a free pint on the house.
And we've linked the app in the description as well, so go down there, click on that, and thank you once again to Green King Sport. We've got some stats as well about United and how they've started the season, how it has been a little bit better, because I don't just want to focus on everyone saying negative things about us. Let's actually look at some of the positives. So against Southampton, a few stats that were sort of massively improved over last season was 20 shots, 10 on target, 5 big chances, and the crucial one for me, only 6 shots conceded. And we spoke about this at the time, but there was 0 games in the Premier League last season where we conceded that few or that little.
It's mad, that, isn't it?
Like, every single game was 7 or more, and only 3 times did we concede 7. It was more than that. I think it was an average of almost 15 shots per game we conceded, and I think post-Christmas it was closer to 20 shots a game that we conceded. So to go from that to 6 is massive. And Southampton, yeah, they're not the best team in the league, but we conceded 20 plus shots to Everton last season.
What do we put that down to? What's changed, you think? Is it?
I think there's a bit more confidence. Yeah. I think the structure's a little bit better. I think that it seems like some of the pressing's better, especially when Mount was playing against Brighton. You could see that press really clearly. And I think that even without him there's more sort of cohesion in the play. And I also think that we're seeing a bit more out of players. I think Rashford's trying a bit harder. I think, Casemiro and other players in those first couple of games particularly looked like he was trying a bit harder, and he came unstuck against Liverpool. But it seems like everyone's got a bit more of a spring in the step, a bit more confidence. Then you've got people like Martinez back, which is massive. You've got Ligt coming in as well. Yeah. I just think like a few different tweaks here and there and a bit of confidence, it makes all the difference. It closes those gaps down and all the things that you want to be able to do but you feel like you can't because you don't trust the person in front of you and you're a bit tired and it's only going to go wrong anyway. They kind of sort of start to go away a little bit. Do you see that?
I think the main thing, I agree with everything you said, by the way, but the Ligt and Martinez have been massive. We said it last season. Martinez makes the team tick. We missed him last season and it showed because for the vast majority of the season, even when he was playing at the beginning of the season, he wasn't fit, and then we missed him for the entire season almost, and we lost more games than I think we've lost in Premier League history. He comes back for the FA Cup final as a Stormer, and we win against the very good Manchester City team. It's not a coincidence. Lisandro Martinez is vital to the way Erik ten Hag wants to play, and he's vital as well for that team in terms of confidence, in terms of stability in the defence, and in terms of playing out from the back. You put him next to the Ligt, who had an absolute worldie against Southampton. Yeah. Not only did he, help keep a clean sheet, help play out from the back, he also got a goal and was player of the match. Then that's going to help the team, innit? When you've got a centre-back pairing that's just, all right, it's a team that's struggling, but are almost unplayable. Then that obviously helps hugely. So, while I agree with everything you said about confidence, about everyone having a little bit of a spring in the step, I think that centre-back partnership has been vital. It really has, because De Ligt looks like the real deal, doesn't he? He looks like that guy we saw at Ajax and that we everyone was sort of raving about, and there's a reason that Juve wanted him, and then Bayern Munich still wanted him after Juve had him, and that we wanted him after all that. So I think if we can keep those two fit, then we'll beat better teams than Southampton.
Yeah, and I think, sorry, Joe, before I think another thing with them playing there as well is, me and Ethan were looking before at the injury records of teams last season, and how bad United was in the centre-back area. It was just a disgrace. Like, we never, basically from about November onwards, didn't have any 2 of our first choice centre-backs fit at the same time for the rest of the season, pretty much. Yeah. And you compare that to Arsenal, who had Gabriel and Saliba fit all year. Yeah. I think between them, they missed like 2 games through injury all season. And I'm not saying that's the only thing, because obviously they're well drilled, they've got good players. But we saw when Saliba got injured for Arsenal the season before, how that affected them. It's such a massive thing. Your centre-backs, especially now, centre-backs start you play out from the back. They control the tempo of your build-up and everything. It's so crucial. Last season, was it 17 different centre-back partnerships or something?
Yeah,
like, that makes a huge difference. And the thing is, I keep saying this, I think Yoro, De Ligt, Martinez and Maguire is the best 4 centre-backs that anyone's got in the Premier League. I don't think there's another team that's got 4 centre-backs better than that. I genuinely don't. And
you mean collectively, before anyone gets silly about it? You mean like as an option?
As a total 4?
Yeah, I get you.
Like, your starting 2 plus your backup 2, I don't think anyone's is better than that. And I think obviously there are individuals that are better, but like I don't need to go through everyone's. I honestly do think that no one's got 4 with an overall quality as good as those 4. If you can keep 2 of those 4 fit at any given time for the whole season, which isn't unreasonable to expect, like I said, Arsenal do it, City do it, Liverpool mostly do it, unless Van Dijk's done his cruise shit. I think the top 4 and getting far in trophies, I think these things almost come naturally at that point, because they've got a good manager, they've got good tactics, they're all good players. It's this constant in and out rotation and how that completely decimates your confidence that kills you. I think if you can keep 2 of them 4 fit all season, I think we'll be all right,
Yeah, no, I agree. Like I said, I do think Martinez is vital, and I think that if you lose him, you lose something. But the good thing about De Ligt is he looks like he's got a bit of that about him, man, in terms of what Martinez can do in terms of leadership. He never stops talking to his teammates, and he's not just dishing out bollockings. He's actually, you can see him being quite constructive, and he can play out from the back as well. And I know it's only one game, but even in set pieces, he's a bit of a threat.
Yeah, the rock at the back allows your attacking players to have a lot more confidence with pushing forward, and even your midfielders knowing that they've got certain key players behind them. And we mentioned the City game when Martinez came back, just how we were able in the 2 goals that we scored to just push on straight away and let our players just absolutely flurry with the ball, and the well-worked goals, and I'll never forget it. But you also knew that those players who were going forward knew that Martinez was there, ready to back, no matter what. If there was a mistake in the break in the build-up, and then they lost the ball, then they knew that they had someone that they really trusted in Martinez behind them, and I think that's what he definitely brings to the squad. That elevated confidence that like Garnacho needs, Rashford needs, Xerxes will need, and etc.
Yeah, I mean, just on De Ligt, obviously we've got the quote from Paul Scholes that's sort of famous almost at this point about him not being keen on him when we first signed him. So he said, you know what, United are talking about bringing players in who won't get in their team. That was, I think, a week before we signed De Ligt. He said he's not played for them, talking about Bayern Munich. That's a big concern for me, especially when Erik Dyer is playing in front of him. I'm not joking, that's a massive concern for me. You bring in players for 40, 50 million, okay, just because he's played for them 3 or 4 years ago. He's coming in almost like a second-rate defender now. Do you think that was misguided? Do you think he could be proven right still, or do you think it was just a little bit of maybe he's not really seen him play that much and he's kind of making assumptions based on a couple of stats or a couple of tweets that he's seen? Like, because that felt particularly harsh, first of all, about a player who's about to start playing for United, which you think, give him a chance. Like, you're a legend at Man United whose words will travel very far, and you're kind of slamming a player before we've even signed him. And B, do you think he regrets saying that?
I don't know if he regrets it, because I don't know if he cares that much. I think he probably might even stick by it. But I think he was misguided. I don't know where he's got the info from that Erik Dyer was keeping Matthijs de Ligt out of the Bayern Munich team, because it became this thing, but it was, when you scratch beneath the surface, it wasn't really true. I think with de Ligt in his final season at Bayern Munich, he had an injury. They brought him back. He was playing, and then he got injured again. And then the sort of narrative was, or the feeling was, that they'd rushed him back. So they held him back a little bit more. So it wasn't a case of he was dropped because he wasn't any good. And there was a massive campaign by Bayern Munich fans to try and keep him. They didn't want to lose him. And it's all very political at Bayern Munich anyway. And I just think, like, calling him things like almost like a second-rate defender now. I felt sorry because McCullough was on the overlap, and I could see like McCullough was making a case for him. And then you've got Paul Scholes, who obviously we all do, and McCullough loves him and respects him, sort of trying to shut that argument down of, he's a good defender. No, he's not. This is why, and it was a tough one, because I didn't agree with anything what Scholes was saying, and I don't think, if you, like I said, if you actually look at the facts of it, it was wholly true. And I think it's a bit dismissive to just say, well, he doesn't get in a Bayern Munich team, even if that was true, which I don't think it is. He's no good for us, Because if you look at Ligt and look at what he offers and look at what we need, it ticks all those boxes. And, the only way to prove Paul Scholes wrong isn't to try and get him stats from his appearance record at Bayern Munich, whatever. Just show him on the pitch for Manchester United.
Yeah.
If you keep playing the way you did against Southampton, then Paul Scholes, whether he regrets it now or not, eventually will go, okay, he's playing well for United. I'm glad we've got him, because Scholes is a United fan, so he's going to want to see United have good players and be successful. So yeah, I think I don't know if he knows what Scholes has said. I don't know if he cares. But if he carries on playing like he has been, then I think Paul Scholes will be, with all due respect, made to eat his words.
Yeah, I think another thing as well, like you look at someone like Akanji, who genuinely was rotation at Dortmund, has gone to Man City for like 15 million quid and and has literally played every game he's been fit since. Like he's one of the first names on the team sheet for that City team. He was a rotation piece for Dortmund. Yeah. They didn't start him every week, and yet he's gone in there and become one of the most dependable and probably best centre-backs in Europe. When, it's not just, and I'm not saying because or if someone doesn't play for their team that they bought him from, they must be great. But you got to look at more than just did he play every week. And also, he's played 30 games last season for Bayern. It wasn't like he'd never got a game.
It's all like relative and conceptual as well, isn't it? Like, what are the reasons he's not always playing? Yeah. And also, how many players have they got, and what do we need, and what does he bring to our team? Like, you can't just dismiss him and say, oh, well, Eric. It's easy to throw the words Eric Dyer in there, and people think, oh, Jesus wept. If Eric Dyer's getting in front of you in defence, then you must be terrible. Yeah, it's not really true. And De Ligt had this reputation when he was at Ajax for a reason. It wasn't just that he was a good young player. People looking at him going, he could be one of the top centre-backs over the next 15 years. And it's not all gone to plan. I think we can all admit that. Yes, he's won titles in Italy and in Germany with Juventus and Bayern Munich, but there is an element or a feeling that in some respects he's not quite lived up to the hype, and I get that, but that doesn't mean that he's a bad player. And also, you're getting a 25-year-old who is a weird mix of being a bit of a wonder kid, won titles everywhere he's been at Ajax, Juve and Bayern Munich, yet still might have something to prove. Yeah. Might have something to prove. Say, other people that have doubted me and questioned me. I'm now with a manager that knows me, who's known me for years. I'm in one of the biggest clubs in the world, again, another big club, and I'm going to shut you all up and show you what I'm about. And he certainly seems to be revelling in his role so far.
Do you like him?
Yeah, I like him. I think just get as many games under his belt as possible, and get him that sort of partnership of two centre-backs that we can see on the team sheet week in, week out is so needed. And for De Ligt to be there with Martinez, and if that partnership grows and it becomes more secure, then as United fans, we should be very, very happy. I mean, unfortunately, the last partnership I remember really strongly was obviously Lindelof and Maguire. And as United fans, we used to go, oh no. But that used to be common for us. Yeah. And we used to, and that was mainly under Ollie and more, but we just knew that was it. That was who we had.
Also, though, in their defence, I'm not saying that you're wrong and that they're world-class centre-backs, but they did finish second together.
Yeah, they did.
Like, those two came in and finished third, certainly, and then second, playing most of the games between them. Like, they weren't terrible.
No.
And having that consistency
you saw that,
of them playing,
I think I get your point,
helpful.
But I think you saw it when Eric Bailly came in. Remember that spell? And he was just mint. And I think that was what we were lacking. I understand you, but I don't think, especially Lindelof, was quite ever that level.
No, well, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. So even players who are limited like those two could finish in a team that finished second in the Premier League and could play every week pretty much because of the confidence, the consistency of their partnership. Even if it's not a world-class partnership, it's at least functional and they know each other. And let alone when you bring Martinez in, who I think is world-class, and De Ligt, who certainly has the potential to get back there. Like that, we imagine what we could do with those.
I think that what I was getting at there was that we knew that there was always going to be a limit to them too. Yeah. Whereas I believe if De Ligt and Martinez can hit off and strike a really great partnership, that the limit is the best Man United can be.
Did they play together at Ajax? They didn't, did they?
No, I don't think so. I think the good thing as well, you spoke about earlier, Joe, having these options, because there was the scenario last season where you saw it, where you had Victor Lindelof playing a lot of games. I don't want to feel like I'm hating on Lindelof, but he had a lot of bad games last season where he didn't look as the player he used to look like. But we were relying on him because there was no one else. And I think having those options, having that almost buffer, so it's not just, well, if De Ligt's injured, then you're having to play someone like, Johnny Evans did quite well, but a 37-year-old, week in, week out. Now you've got 4 centre-backs. People always talk only about, do you remember the good old days in '99 when we had Ollie, Sheringham, York and Cole. Well, you don't need 4 strikers now because you usually play with 1 striker. So having 4 is probably overkill. You probably need 2 or 3. But you do need 4 centre-backs. The amount of games you play, the amount of rotation you want, and the fact that players pick up injuries, and the fact if you're successful in Europe, you can play 60 games a season. You probably do need 4, and the frequency of those games as well. And we've got that, and you need all 4 of them to be able to do a job. You don't need 3 and then 1 who's a bit rubbish. And we haven't. I think we've actually got 5. I think Johnny Evans can do a job as well. He can come in and do well for you.
And Lindelof's still here.
Lindelof's still here. I'm a huge fan of him, being brutally honest, but. Yeah. Now, all of a sudden, you look at it and you go, okay, like we did against Barnsley, rest people, you give Evans some minutes. If you've got a game against Southampton, obviously you can go back with your strongest, but if one of those was to be unavailable, I haven't got a problem with Harry Maguire coming in. I think he gets undue stick, and when Lenny Yoro is fit, he's going to get games. He didn't choose us over Real Madrid to sit on a bench for the rest of his time at Manchester United.
No, it's a really good point there. I think, generally speaking, for any given position, you need 2 players in that position, plus a floater that can kind of pick up a couple. So up front we've got Xerxes and Højlund strikers. Bruno can play false 9. Rashford can come over there if you need to. Centre backs, like you said, you've got 5 there. Full backs, you've got Luke Shaw and Malassi on one side, plus Dalot can fill in if he needs to. At right back, you've got Mazraoui and Dalot. Maybe we're a little bit weak there in terms of sort of reliability if those 2 get injured, because Luke Shaw can't really play right back, etc. But generally it's like 2 in each position. Like up front in 99 we had 2 strikers starting, so then you need another 2 off the bench, and then you got a floater if you need it in, whoever else would play up there. But like, that's perfect. That's what you need. And you just got to hope that you don't have a disgustingly massive injury season like United did last year with 60 injuries or whatever it was. And then usually you can sort of play to roughly your maximum potential all season, unless obviously absolute carnage happens. Another one obviously with De Ligt, we'll move on from De Ligt in a second, but about how Van Dijk and Koeman spoke about him after he made a couple of mistakes for the national team. I mean, and it's fair enough to a certain degree, but I do think that, I don't know, they sort of are quite willing to pile the pressure on, aren't they? I think certain national sides, they're more than fine with just sort of having to go at their players publicly. Yeah. And I think the Dutch national side seems to be one where they're quite fine to do that. Like Van Dijk was talking about De Ligt's mistake, one of which was actually Van Dijk's mistake, the other one was De Ligt's mistake. He said, this is football, you have to learn from this. It was one moment, but at the highest level you get punished for it. He also, Koeman talked about it, said, of course I'd rather have kept him on the pitch. It just looks like he's now in a period where all his mistakes have been punished. I gave him a new chance today, but eventually protected him by taking him off. He realised himself that he was in the wrong position. This shouldn't have happened, but mistakes are part of football. I think it's unfair to make a big deal out of it. So he is trying to downplay it to a certain degree, but it felt as though there was this momentum building against De Ligt a little bit, and I think he's sort of squashed that already.
I feel like he's almost contradicting himself though, Koeman, where he's saying like, he's talking about them, but we don't want to make a big deal out of it. I think, well, you kind of are a little bit yourself. Yeah. And also, like, with him and Van Dijk, there's rumours in there that De Ligt and Van Dijk don't get on. Yeah. Like, there was talk that Liverpool were interested in him, but that was a non-starter because De Ligt won't go to a club where Van Dijk is because he won't play with him week in, week out. I don't know how true that is. I mean, careful, using words carefully, but there was always a bit of rumours of a bit of needle in the Dutch squad, isn't there? There's certain players who don't get on with other players, and there's always stuff going on, and it does feel a little bit like that. It sounded me a little bit, and at the time I think I did a news on a Sunday and I was like, okay, whatever, but then when I watched those goals back, and I just think it's unnecessary at international level. You could just come out and say, look, he's a great player, I don't need to tell you how good he is, I don't need to talk about his mistakes, we know what he's about, you only have to see what he's achieved already in the game and we'll move on. I don't think you need to go, oh, well, make mistakes happen, he knows he shouldn't have done it. I don't think you need to do any of that. I don't think Van Dijk as a skipper needs to come out and go, you know what, it's the highest level, you will get punished for it. I think he can be dismissive of it as well. We see it all the time with international teams. All the time. They come out and it's like Pravda. It's like they refuse to almost accept any negativity towards the teammates or the players. And if they do have anything to say, they'll do it behind closed doors. And they'll just highlight the positives and say, oh, listen, we don't need to dwell on this, we just move forward or whatever. So it does feel a little bit, for me, underhanded and unnecessary. And I think Koeman did it with the kid who went to... was it Steven Bergwijn, the lad who used to be at Spurs?
Bergwijn.
Yeah, he laid into him, didn't he? We've seen this before with him and certain players, and I just think sometimes you don't need to go that deep. You can just say, look, I'm not going to dwell on this, or I don't need to go on about it. He's a great player, let's move on. Yeah. But obviously, with his manager and his captain both having to dig at him, it did feel like a little bit of a pile on, especially when you saw some of the Dutch press were going after him. But the flip side to that is also the Dutch press after the Southampton game were absolutely lauding him.
Yeah, they were.
Yeah, I think just on that, I was just looking at Ten Hag and how he treats his players, and regardless of what the result is, he never really throws any of them under the bus too much, does he?
It's a good point as well. So people forget the Ligt's 25, right? When Van Dijk was 25, he was playing for Southampton, getting turned inside out by Anthony Martial. So it's not like, this is the finished article.
Yeah.
He can make mistakes. He's still, achieved a lot in the game at 25 years old. He's played for four of the biggest clubs in the world, and he's won titles at 3 of them, and hopefully one day he'll win one with us.
Yeah, definitely. Another thing that sort of Ten Hag's faced so far this season is criticism by journalists, obviously. I know we've talked about Sam and Jordan before, if you want to call him a journalist, probably more of a presenter and personality than a journalist, isn't he? The one in particular was where he had this sort of back and forth with a journalist asking
Ian Ladyman, I think it was.
Yeah, asking him about the problems that United have had with the systems and how United have performed so far. And the reporter said, what makes you confident that it's the players that are the problem and not your coaching? And then Ten Hag basically said to him, because he said as well about these repeated mistakes that we keep seeing over and over again. Ten Hag said, what are these mistakes? And then the journalist came back and sort of listed. People say he listed loads of things, but actually he listed one thing 4 times, which was basically that there's a big gap in midfield and we keep giving the ball away. That was the thing that he sort of said over and over again in different ways. Do you think that kind of approach is just standard with everyone? Do you see that happening all the time? Or do you think that, there was this sort of narrative building around Ten Hag that he's sort of tactically inept, he can't do it, it's not going to work, and that we're basically waiting for him to fulfill that, you're shit, ha, and then if you don't, then okay, we'll change our minds later? Or do you think that he's been given a fair shot, really?
I think he has to a certain degree. I mean, I think if you finish 8th in the Premier League, Manchester United manager, conceding the amount of goals we conceded, dropping the amount of points we dropped, and losing the amount of games we lost, especially at Old Trafford, and especially some of the teams we lost to, we were in the bottom half of the table, then you're going to get criticised, and I don't think you can be too sort of offended by that or upset by it. I think the problem with Ten Hag is, and I've been in those press conferences a lot, journalists treat managers the way they can get away with. I saw it with Jose, and I saw it with. I've been in press conferences going back to Sir Alex Ferguson. Like, journalists with Sir Alex knew they couldn't ask him certain questions, they couldn't do certain things. If Sky had a difficult question to ask Sir Alex Ferguson, they used to swap the presenters so that if he banned the presenter, it wouldn't be the presenter. Genuinely, or it wouldn't be the presenter that's upset him, who's going to be there next week, because then he won't answer the question properly. Fergie ruled with the iron fist, he was having none of it. So it's always been that way, and we saw it with Van Gaal when he sort of snaps with journalists. We saw it with Jose. I saw it on one press conference, and I mentioned this a few times, where we lost to Hull in the midweek game before the press conference, a few days before it, and he refused to accept that Hull's second goal was a goal. So he said we didn't lose, it was a draw, and then journalists were asking him questions saying the game against Hull that some people say you lost, but you say you drew. Like it was up for debate because it was so wary of upsetting
Some people say you lost.
Like some people, basically everyone says because we did.
The Premier League think you lost, so you don't, and that's just as valid.
Yeah, it was bizarre, but they knew if they upset him, he ain't going to answer their questions or he'll snap with him. Whereas with Ten Hag, I think you can get away with a bit more.
Yeah, I do think you can get away with it.
And I think Ian Ladyman knows that.
I think that question there, what makes you confident that it's the players that are the problem, not your coaching? I think that's a fair question. I think it's got blown out of proportion a little bit because of that weird back and forth they had. Oh, can you tell me some examples? And that got a little bit, just a little bit like confusing, and I don't think they quite understood the back and forth. And Ten Hag did like a weird smile as if to sort of go, oh shit, he's got a couple of points there. But I think that is you've got to ask those questions when, United have finished 8th last season, they've got a summer, they've spent money, and we've started not as strongly as maybe some people thought we would have. Yeah. But I think the only thing is that little sort of confusion. It got a bit messy, didn't it? When it was like, give me some reasons why. Yeah. It just got a little bit messy, and I didn't quite enjoy that bit. It's
almost like with press conferences and journalists, there's an air of like teacher-student about it, isn't there? Where like you said, when as a class, you take the piss as much as that teacher lets you. And you know that depending on, you can be the same class going from geography to science to maths to English or whatever. You all behave differently depending on who's at the front of the class.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Even though you're all the same people and you want to have a laugh and take the piss, when it's that teacher, oh shit, you don't mess around with him because he won't have it, and it's just, I think maybe Ten Hag could get, I don't know, he's probably not going to get that now, is he? He's the sort of manager that he gets respect by winning games, and even then doesn't always get respect. So I think that maybe, I don't know if it's a language thing or whether it's just like I said, why is he asking him for examples of mistakes he's made? Like, you're asking to be made to look a twat there, aren't you?
Yeah.
So I think that was a little bit silly.
I think you're right. I think there's a bit of naivety from Ten Hag then there, and I think, someone like Ian Ladyman as well, he's been around for years. I'm pretty sure it was him who asked that question. You might have got away with it if it was a younger journalist who almost crumbled. I don't want to get involved in a back and forth. But he was always going to come back at it with something there.
Yeah.
He's got the experience and he knows the game as well. So Erik Ten Hag's just got to be a little bit more savvy with the media at times. And I don't mind it when Erik Ten Hag comes out fighting. I think last season he chose his battles quite carefully, and there was a couple of press conferences where he was up against it and he came out with a bit, not just being arsey, anyone can do that, but like on the front foot and standing up for himself. And I want to see that, but he's got to be a bit better.
He needs the sort of on the pitch foundation to be able to do that as well, because it is hard to be bullish and aggressive when you have had the worst Premier League season in United's history.
That's a great point.
That's really hard.
Really
so
good,
we need to keep winning games. Obviously, all of this is underpinned by winning games.
Yeah.
Just on in terms of proving that wrong and that thing about United, the massive gap in midfield. Have you seen less of that this season? Have you? Does it feel like it's less basketball ping pong than we've seen in the past, or certainly last season? Can you see changes there?
I saw it definitely against Brighton. You saw it. The midfielder looks a lot deeper, and to be fair, even a little bit against Liverpool. Then the wheels came off, didn't they?
Yeah.
So that sort of altered everyone's perception of it. But 100% against Southampton, you could see it. There was a little bit of ping pong going on early doors where we kept sort of playing it high, and it was a little bit like Sunday League football as well, where you had like Eriksen and Mainu trying to get their head on things. I was like, why are we doing that? But then once we got it down on the deck and we started playing, and you saw Martinez and Ligt and Eriksen and Mainu was a sort of like that little square in the middle there, sitting quite deep and playing the ball to one another and just being a little bit more compact. It looked a lot better. And I know it's a basic argument, and I know I've said it a few times now, but it just helps massive when you've got better players on the pitch. And like the Ligt and Martinez, no disrespect to some of the defenders we had playing last season, but they're just more solid.
Some of them are midfielders. Some of them aren't at the club anymore. Yeah. Like, that's not a diss at Willy Kambwala particularly, but when you've got him and Casemiro next to each other, or Casemiro and Lindelof, or Kambwala and Maguire, or you've got like your fourth choice centre-back with a kid.
Yeah.
Or with a midfielder. That's just not functional.
No, you're right. It's not. And,
it's not.
And we found that out last season the hard way. Like, I know it's a cliche, but in the Premier League, every game is tough.
Yeah.
Like
100%.
if you think, we'll just stick a 19-year-old and a 34-year-old, 32-year-old midfielder in defence, we'll be fine. Be Reeds.
Yeah. Well, we got Palace away next, and that's a game that you might have looked at in 5-6 years ago and gone, Palace away, good 3 points. But it's a big game for Man United to sort of show how far we may have come from last year's, which was one of the worst performances I've seen for United for many different reasons when we got beat by them.
Yeah, they were
and so like you say, every game matters.
Was that the Casemiro game?
Yeah,
it was. Where he was just 2 out of 10.
He slid past Eze, didn't he? And Eze just stopped, and watched him, and then carried on.
What's even worse is Sky Sports released I think it was a ref cam of that goal before the season.
It looked like fucking. Do you remember that? Not pro clubs on FIFA. Do you know the one where you can be like, create a pro career mode?
Oh, yeah,
and the camera is like a first person vision of you running, like you see the arms running and stuff. It literally looked like that. It was like a cartoon video.
And you saw him
goal.
slide, and he just looked. It's like.
And I don't think he ever will. He is the player he is. He's massively experienced. I don't think he's going to change the game. But Casemiro goes to ground so easily sometimes, and I think sometimes he needs to stop that.
Yeah.
Because you saw against Palace, it was just cringe. I hated that.
We've not spoken much in the last couple of weeks since United have won a couple of games. Just generally this season, Joe, have you seen a difference to last year? Does it feel as though the players are maybe a bit happier? Maybe that we're sort of stopping chances. We are stopping chances more than we were last year. But can you see a difference, or to you it's still what we saw last season?
I've not seen an incredibly fundamental change in our whole team performance yet. Obviously, with individuals coming back like Martinez ruling the roost from the back, with someone we missed so much last season. Of course, he's going to have an impact. But it's really games on the weekend, and when we've got Spurs as well, that we're going to see maybe the fruits of our labour from the summer and just see how much work Ten Hag has put into changing this United team. I felt unfortunate against Brighton, but when we sat here after the Fulham game when we won, we did see a complete change from the way we opened last season against Wolves. It was pretty much it was the exact same result, but we had much more positives to talk about. But then when you look at what happened at the Brighton game, I feel like there's these weird 20 minute chunks of football for United where we have these glimpses of being great. I think it was like at the Liverpool game. There was some moments of that football where I was like, this is actually all right. If we can keep this 30-minute spell up and we can make it last 90 minutes, then we could potentially win here. And I wonder if that's going to happen a little bit more over time. We play 40 minutes of great football, we play 50, 60, and then we just play great football for a 90-minute game. Because even at the start of Southampton, there was little bits of worry in me that I think, oh, here we go.
Yeah, and obviously they got a penalty.
They got a penalty, and that could have changed everything.
Yeah.
So I think we can play great football at the minute, but we just need to be able to play great football for an entire game.
So if we're looking through this sort of forward line then, Rashford so far this season has got 3 goals, 1 assist. Garnacho has only made 2 starts and he's still got 3 goals and 3 assists, which is excellent. Ahmad as well, a goal and an assist as well. Xerxes, 5 appearances and a goal, but a lot of chances as well that on one hand it's annoying that he's missed, but there's more chances there. Do you see a difference in Rashford and Garnacho? Can you see a world where maybe 2 of our front 3 get 15 goals each rather than none? Do you think that we're seeing a bit of a difference there?
We do look like we're seeing a difference, and I have to be cautious with it because I appreciate the fact that whilst these numbers look decent, it's the Barnsley game that is bumping them up. So me, you know my thoughts on Garnacho and Ahmad and Rashford. I love those 3 players in particular, but we just got to temper it a little bit. I will say this though, really, I think Marcus should have 3 assists or 4 because the Fulham one, Garnacho could have easily scored that, maybe should have. You look at the Xerxes chance against Liverpool, he should have scored those, I'm sorry.
Certainly one of them.
Yeah, they put on a plate for him. Great delivery from Marcus. I didn't say he was having a great game, but those 2, what should have been assists, were superb balls. So whilst I can say, Barnsley's sort of stat padded a little bit, the counter argument's that way. Actually, if some of the finishing was better, he'd be sat here on 4 assists and everyone would go, Marcus Rashford's got 7 goal involvements this season. He's absolutely smashing it. And also, just in general play, look, we saw it last season against likes of Newport and against Coventry. I know Coventry are a bit better than Barnsley, but we saw it against lower teams where we struggled.
Newport is a League 2 side.
Oh, well, that's not,
and we were 2-0 up and gave that lead away to go back to 2-0 before we ended up finishing 4-2.
It was pretty drastic.
Yeah.
So you can't take that for granted. And also, the Southampton game, people, it's only Southampton. How many times last season did we play teams the bottom half of the table and struggle to score against them? Yeah. How many times last season did we beat anyone 3-0? Did it even happen? So you can't be too dismissive. I
remember the only game,
sort of cautiously optimistic is how I'd say about it. I'm pleased with what I've seen, but I agree with what you said there, Joe. Right now, the games are perfect for you. Palace away is a bit of a tough one, but it's not a completely, we've got no chance of getting anything here. Palace concede goals. I think they just conceded 2 to Leicester. We can get goals against them, and we should do.
What were you saying then, Joe?
No, I was just saying the last 3-0, I believe. Was West Ham at home. Do you remember when the Garnacho, Højlund, and who am I missing? Garnacho, Højlund, and they did the
Ahmad.
Why didn't miss Ahmad? That was our last 3-0, remember? Because I did a little bit of research myself. Because when was the last time we last won 3-0? And it was at home in that West Ham game. But it was very rare, quite common in Ten Hag's first season. I remember just Everton and teams like that, and Charlton in the FA Cup, we'd always just have a great little run of form. We seem to just lose something about last season, and I hope these attackers can just keep on this great start to the season.
Yeah, I think we need now a spell of one of them where it's 1 loss in our last 15 games, or do you know when you go on a proper little run that you need to do if you want to finish top 4, you want to do well. I think in the first season under Ten Hag there was a spell from a sort of October to kind of the Carabao Cup final where United only lost 2 in 25 or something. And I'm not, it's going to take a lot to go back to that, because last year it felt like we never got 3 wins in a row, let alone, unbeaten for dozens of games. But it'd be nice to United to Palace is a game that you shouldn't be losing. even Tottenham at home, I know they're decent, but they're going through a tough time. It's a game
I really think those two
FC20
games
shouldn't be losing.
Well, Tottenham at home for me, I know I keep saying it and I might be left with egg on my face. There's no excuses.
No
Excuses. I'm sorry.
We've got Villa away, haven't we? I think in a couple
I know,
of weeks.
listen, I might be sorry after the Spurs game sulking, but before that game, going into it, you can't be saying, oh, well, no, you should beat Tottenham Hotspur at home.
Yeah,
you just should.
Right, I think that's a nice place to end it.
Lovely.
It's a little bit nicer, isn't it, Joe?
It is a little bit nicer.
On, it wasn't very fun being a United fan.
But fingers crossed you can continue it. I'd love to see a go away at Palace. It's 5:30 Saturday night. Yeah. What a way to start your Saturday. I was going to say go boozing then, but you won't go. Have a great night.
Go boozing afterwards.
Yeah, you go boozing afterwards.
Yeah.
And then just have a wonderful Man United win.
You know you're going to go boozing.
I'm going to go to Green King, obviously.
Of course.
Green King Sport Pub.
Exactly. Right, thank you very much for joining us. This has been Off the Bar, brought to you by Green King Sport, as Joe said so brilliantly there. Make sure you check them out, link in the description. Thank you very much for joining us. We'll see you in a bit.